Hello, everyone. You are listening to WKNC 88.1 FM HD1 Raleigh. We are a student run organization over here at NC State. I am Kivo Wilson, and this is Off the Record. Hello, everyone. Today I'm here with Gabe Larson from the indie band Waldemar. I know y'all previously released the Visions EP, but this new record you released, Ruthless, this year is your first full length album. What is that like to finally have a whole album out for y'all?
Yeah, well, I guess I've put out some other music before this one, but this was like the first uh full length record, which was a much bigger endeavor. But yeah, the the short version of the story is took me a little over 5 years to make this record. It's called Ruthless. And it was like a year of writing, and then I thought I was ready to record the record and was going to record it with a buddy of mine. Who's a big heavyweight producer guy in Eau Claire, where I'm from. And then all of a sudden, he got a job to go out on tour with a really amazing band. And then I was kind of left homeless studio wise, and me
Hmm.
and my brother who plays drums in the band, we caught a wild hair and we're like, what if we built our own recording studio? I had this old horse barn behind my house in Eau Claire, and it'd been kind of like a silly pipe dream to like make that into a studio someday. And we were just crazy enough to be like, oh, let's do it. And so we started building a studio, and we thought it would take us like 3 months, and it took us 2 years to build it. And just how those things go. uh, but yeah, we built the studio for 2 years, and then took about 2 years of recording and mixing. So five years from start to finish working on this record. But uh, yeah, so yeah, I mean, I've released other music before this one, but none that was like that insane of a process. So yeah, that's the short version, I guess. So 5 years covers a lot of time, but yeah.
Okay, you're definitely the first person I've heard to make their own recording studio for their album. I think that's an achievement. So
Yeah,
congratulations on
yeah.
that. So what did you learn from making a functional recording studio out of a barn house?
Yeah, oh man. God, so many lessons. I mean, the I guess the first thing that comes to mind to me is uh I feel like a thing that I was really confronting a lot in deciding to just like do all this in-house, if you will, is
Hmm.
I think a very classic artistic fear. Maybe it's not even artistic, but it shows up in the arts a lot. Is like just imposter syndrome stuff of like I need other people who are actually professionals to be able to make something that sounds good. That's like the fear that's going on. And so the entire time of
Hmm.
building the studio, that was present in like, oh, are we capable of building a recording studio that is capable of producing quality sounding music? Like, are we able to frame the walls in a way that is going to be good for sound? Are we going to be able to soundproof the building in a way that's going to be good for making music? Are we going to be able to
Hmm.
buy and install gear that is going to be good for making music? It was like that kind of question was hanging around all the time over those 2 years of building the studio. And we ended up building a really awesome, super cool place. And I think that was like really good to, over the course of 2 years, to just be like wrestling with doubt and fear and imposter syndrome stuff, and to kind of like move through that and to like make a place that I felt really proud of, and like, oh, like we are capable of making a
Hmm.
good place. You know what I mean? And so I learned a lot of those lessons on like building the studio. And so then when it came time to actually like make the music and record everything, then all of a sudden those same types of fears were present. So, like, oh, am I a good songwriter? You know, am I
Mm-hmm.
capable of, are we capable of recording good songs now? Like, am I capable of mixing these good songs or mixing songs well and all that kind of stuff? And it was like, I had just finished like wrestling with those same categories of fears and doubts over the course of building the studio, now making
Mm-hmm.
the music. And so to some degree, those fears and doubts felt familiar, and I kind of had like a little bit of a sense of confidence of like, oh, I think I can. I think I actually can. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that if I commit to something in whatever, that I can, I'm capable. I think I'm actually capable. So yeah, I think the process of building the studio, I think, really challenged a lot of the BS that we tell ourselves of like, oh, I can't do that. Only professionals do that, or only people who live in New York or LA can do that. You know what I mean? Which is just is garbage. You know, it's just like
It is.
that's just it's insecurity. You know what I mean? That's all it is. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I think building the studio like put me in a path of like doing a lot of work on that kind of confronting that kind of BS self talk, and then I kind of was able to take those lessons a step further with actually making the record, you know, making the music. So
Mm-hmm.
long story long, but yeah. Yeah.
So I kind of want to talk more about imposter syndrome. I feel like that's a
Yeah.
thing that affects a lot of smaller artists who
Oh, for
haven't really
sure.
taken off yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think it's a big thing that kind of stops them from taking that first step and making great music.
100%.
So what are some other ways you kind of fight imposter syndrome?
Oh man. One of the first things that comes to mind for me is I have taken a whole lot of joy and security and help from listening to other artists talk about making art, and
Mm-hmm.
specifically from artists who we categorize in our brain of like, oh, those are the artists, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's different for everybody on like who are your music idols or whatever, on like who are the people out there that have made the records that just feel like totally brilliant. And listening to those people talk about songwriting, um, I find that they say and think uh, the exact same things that I am saying and thinking, and they wrestle with the exact same fears that I'm wrestling with. Like for example, like I read Jeff Tweedy, like he's like the lead singer of Wilco, the
Oh,
main
okay. I
songwriter
love
from
them.
Wilco. Yeah, Wilco's awesome. They just put out a new single that's really good. Kate LeBon produced it. Evicted, I think that's the name of it. I've listened to it a
Mm-hmm.
couple times. Anyway, but yeah, Jeff Tweedy, he's like this prolific songwriter. He's put out so many insanely great records. And I read his autobiography, actually listened to it on audiobook. He narrates it. It's really good. Um, but he describes songwriting and like feeling insecure about his own songwriting and feeling afraid that he's like that he doesn't have any more songs in him and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, like listening to him talk about his process of songwriting and the fears that he's dealing with, I'm like, that sounds exactly like what I'm dealing with. And it's like, well, man, if Jeff Tweedy's dealing with that, like,
Mm-hmm.
then it's okay for me to feel that. Like, I'm not feeling that way because I'm like not an artist or something like that. Like, that's just what we deal with as artists. You know what I mean? And I think the imposter syndrome thing, what that self talk, what that voice will say to you is you're feeling insecure, and real artists, they don't feel secure. They feel sure of
Mm-hmm.
themselves. They feel secure. They feel sure of the art that they're making. They have that like genius kind of thing going on, and you go and listen to them talk about songwriting, and they're like, "How did you come up with that song?" And they're like, I don't know. I was like just like they don't know. You know what I mean? It's like a
Mm-hmm.
mystery on how they came up with their stuff. It's like, oh, okay, so that's just like what it means to make art. You know what I mean? So, um, I read Bruce Springsteen's autobiography too. And I mean, you talk about a prolific
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
songwriter, and he talked about that like he went through major seasons of depression, of feeling like he'd kind of written his last song and stuff like that, and he was like just getting started, So
Mm.
um, yeah, so that's been something I've gone to a lot, I would say, in recent years of listening to people that seem like they're not imposters talk about feeling like they're imposters, and that weirdly gives me hope.
Yeah, that's a lot of good advice.
Yeah, yeah,
So kind of going back to how the album was recorded,
yeah,
it seems like a lot of the bandmates kind of recorded their parts separately for the album.
yeah.
Why did y'all choose to record the LP this way?
Um, well, choose is that's a very intentional word, and it wasn't. It honestly, it just like happened that way. Like it was kind of like
Mm,
I noticed like halfway through the record that that's like how we were making. I think I thought like it was like December 2019 is when we like kicked off recording the
mhm,
record, and like I got the whole band out to the studio, and we like cracked open a beer, and we're like, all right, cheers, we're doing this, you know what I mean? And but like we'd like just finished building the studio literally like the month prior. We hadn't like hit record really on anything. Like we still didn't really know how to use our own studio really. We just like
mhm,
had this space. And so like we did like a day or two together as like a full band in the room, like recording stuff, but we basically got nothing done. We were basically just like
mm,
still just like figuring out how to like use our gear, and like I don't know, like we basically got nothing done. And that was like the last time that all of us were all in the room together, like making this record. And like by accident, I think I don't know, I think I thought that we would all be in the room together, like, and have that like kind of band experience of making a record
mhm,
together. And I don't know, for some reason we just didn't. And there was no decision that went into that. Like I just that's just kind of how it ended up happening. There was some point like maybe halfway through making the record that like I had been kind of bringing guys individually in to work on their parts and work on the songs and stuff like that. And
mhm,
there's kind of a part about halfway through recording the record where I felt really out of touch with my own opinions and my own
mm,
um, instincts on the song. Like I'd have like our other guitar player Josh in the studio, and we'd be working on guitars, and he'd be like, "Well, what do you think?" And I'd be like, "I don't know." He was like, "Do you like this?" And I was like, "I don't know. I might hate it or I might love it.
mhm,
I don't know." like I was like I felt total nothingness basically. Like I just really had lost track of my own instincts on the songs, and I ended up just like working on the songs by myself completely for like 3 or 4 months or something like that. Like
mm,
nobody in the band heard from me. Like, and then all of a sudden, everybody got a fresh batch of demos in their email. Um, and we're like, whoa, these songs all sound way different than the last time that we heard them. What happened? Like, oh yeah, I've, I'd been working on them by myself for like 4 months. And I
mhm,
think being the only person in the room like helped me kind of like reconnect with my own instincts on the songs. And I got a ton done that way. Like everything started to feel just really instinctual, and just very kind of flow state. Um so so yeah, I don't know, the making of the record was mostly like me bringing guys in, one individually mixed with kind of some longer seasons of me just working by myself on it. But um yeah, there was no design ahead of time of like, okay, this is how we're gonna make the record. It just
mhm.
kind of just organically happened the way it happened, man. So yeah,
That's interesting. You kind of found your flow state working by yourself. Because I know you
yeah,
kind of talked about your last band kind of breaking up because you had so many kind of cooks in the kitchen, to say.
literally, yeah, yeah. We had like five songwriters in a five-piece band, which is just like that's ridiculous. And they're all good songwriters too, which is
Mhm,
even worse. Like if you had five songwriters in the room, like at least like three of them could just be like terrible. You know what I mean? So you could just be like, that's a bad idea. We're not doing that.
mhm,
But they were all like really good songwriters. So yeah,
mhm.
totally. Um,
Yeah, well, I think like outside opinions kind of really help. I think definitely sitting there and focusing on your own work kind of lets you hone in and not be so obsessed with what other people think in the moment.
yeah, I mean, it's good to have, I think it's good to have both. You know what I mean? That like
Hmm.
all of us as people, as songwriters, as artists, we all have blind spots. You know what I mean? Like, for example, like I tend to like the, the songs for me when I write a song out of the gate is like 20 minutes too long, basically. Like
Mm.
I like I like get an idea for a song, or I get a mood going or a vibe going on a new song idea, and I will like take it way too far to some oftentimes that's like my instinct. And so having other people in the room um who can be like, yo, Gabe, this song, this idea that you've got going is good, but you lost me like 5 minutes ago. Like we should
Mm.
cut this in half. You know what I mean? Um, uh, but other times, like you get too many people in the room, you can lose track of your own vision for the song
Mm.
really quickly too. So it's good to have a mix of both, I've found, but the trick is just knowing when you need other people's perspective and knowing when you need to trust your own instincts. And I feel like knowing when you need one over the other just kind of comes with time and comes with experience, you know? And I feel like I'm still learning when I need to lean on others and when I need to kind of retreat and just be by myself with a song for a while. Um, but I'm excited. I'm kind of starting to work on new music right now. I'm kind of in like the preamble stage, if you will. Um, and I feel a little bit more armed with experience going into writing new songs right now to kind of, I feel a little bit more in tune with knowing when I need to call up a bandmate and when I need to just sit with it a little bit longer. And I don't know if I even can really explain that. I feel like I said, I think some of that just comes with experience and just
Mm.
reps, you know. Um, so yeah, man.
Yeah, I know in a previous interview you kind of talked about when you kind of come up for lyrics for a song, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of hard to kind of chop up it into bits that make sense in a song format.
Yeah,
So
totally.
it's kind
Yeah.
of so have you gotten better at that curation process of like, okay, this while I love this part is like this does not need to be in the song.
Yeah, I have. I think a lot of that has also come with experience of, I think, as a younger songwriter, especially as one like myself who, like you just mentioned, I on almost all my songs I've written the lyrics first and then I write the
Mm.
music later, which is kind of is backwards from the way that most songwriters write songs.
Mhm.
Apparently, I just like found that out not too long ago that most songwriters come up with music first and then write their lyrics later. But I think as when I was a younger songwriter writing songs that way, I think I didn't trust. I didn't have enough songs fully written, music and everything, to be able to trust that. Like, oh, if you chop this whole verse
Mhm.
of lyrics, you still are going to end up with a good song at the end of this. You know what I mean? And I've written enough songs now where I've like chopped that line that just felt like
Mhm.
this like killer line that just like really speaks, but it just wasn't working. And that I've gone it through it enough times of like just, I mean, they call it like killing your
Mhm.
babies, which is like pretty graphic. I forget who coined that phrase, but it's pretty gory, but it kind of feels right. But um, I've done it enough times and have ended up with a song that feels really good to trust that, like, yeah, it's okay to get rid of good stuff. You can still end up with a great song even with getting
Mhm.
rid of good stuff, you know. So but as a young songwriter, that was a lot harder because I think I was worried that I was cutting out the stuff that would make it a great song, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? But um, it's just reps and experience again on being able to trust that, you know.
Take a quick break from the interview so y'all can take a listen to the title track off of Ruthless. Enjoy, and I'll be right back.
I've watched, heard you speak 1,000 times. Herein is in, always listening near me. I still have dreams of her in the night. Sometimes still only what I wanna hear. Oh, die. I wonder if I'll ever be free. Could tell changing of leaves. Sometimes I still only hear what I wanna hear. Oh, can I live with never knowing? Oh, can I love but never show it? And I'm giving up my giving to statues who never speak. I'm giving up my singing to specters who never cease. And I'm doing away with all my doing. Trust I won't know. No ruthless trust. No.
Hope you all enjoyed that back. I am back now with the interview. Enjoy the rest. Yeah. So, kind of talking about song making, one of my favorite songs from the new album, Ruthless.
Hmm.
Um, it's kind of that title track. I really love that title track.
Yeah, yeah,
So you kind of talked about how like this song kind of went through the process of being tweaked and re-recorded, and maybe it's
yeah.
not going to make it on the album, then coming back on.
Yeah.
How do you know when like to take your hands off? Like, okay, I'm done. The song is done and complete. I need to stop messing with it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Half the record I like fully recorded and then I hated it and I deleted it
Mm,
and started over. And I mean, and that song was one of those ones where I basically fully recorded, I think vocals and everything. Somewhere on the hard drive of our studio computer, there's like an alt version of this whole of half of this record
mm,
that will never see the light of day. Uh, but yeah, I think that song, yeah, knowing when it's done, and honestly, because I was the one I recorded it and I mixed it, I knew it was done when I would the way that I mixed the record in a lot of ways, I would go on walks with the songs. Like I would go on a
mm,
walk through my neighborhood and just I would put the songs wherever they were. I'd bounce them and throw them on my phone, and I would go on a walk and just listen on headphones and just stop and jot down notes all the time
mm,
whenever something was sticking out to me. And then I also refinish wood floors is what I do for work besides working on records. And so I would like listen to my songs while I'm sanding floors and stuff and stop and take notes all the time. And then after I'd compiled a bunch of notes, I'd go back to the studio, make adjustments, bounce it, throw it on my phone, go on walks, listen to it while I was sanding floors, etc. And I knew that I was done with the songs basically when I would throw on the record and I would notice that that song just finished and I just
mm.
enjoyed it. You know what I mean? That there
Okay.
was nothing was jumping out at me, nothing was making me wince, nothing was making me cringe, nothing was like
Mm,
bugging me. Like that the song just finished and I just had a great time. You know what I mean? And I was like,
yeah.
oh, I think that might mean that I'm done. You know what I mean? And so that was basically how I did it. Is just I when when I stopped finding things to change, that then I was like, oh, I think that means we're done. I think it took me a long time to get there, and I think if
Mm,
somebody else would have been mixing the record, they would have not been making like I was like way down the rabbit hole of like, okay, the guitar at 208 needs to come up like zero point 0.2 dB and then come back down at 212 like zero point 0.3 dB.
mm,
Like I was doing little adjustments like that
mm.
at times, which some might say is ridiculous, and they would probably be right. But eventually I stopped even wanting to do that, and I was just like, oh no, it sounds right. So um, yeah, man.
Nice. So when you finally finished the album, it was obviously time to release it. Then you've released a vinyl and
Mm-hmm.
CDs as well, which look amazing, by
Yep.
the way.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
Um,
Yeah.
so what is it like to print physical copies as a smaller band?
It's expensive.
Mm,
It's really expensive. Uh, it's I don't know. It's cool. I've never made physical copies of music any other way than just doing it in house. So I guess I don't know what it's like to have a label print thousands of your
mm,
records and stuff like that, or hire an art director to do everything. My background in college, I went to school for visual art basically. Like I basically my degree was like a minor in like five different things. It was like my degree was called multimedia production. It was like
mm,
photography, graphic design, video production, music, and uh, gosh, there's something else in there too. But none of those things do I want to do for a career at all. So it was a little bit of a waste. But I know enough about doing visual design stuff that like being involved in making the artwork and stuff for the record was something that I felt excited about and had just enough skill to be able to get my hands dirty with it. So it was kind of fun. The album artwork I is the main cover of the album. I took that picture when I was on choir tour in college in Portugal, and
Mm.
I like there's just this dude walking through this like flock of pigeons, and I just like had happened to have my camera. We had like just finished singing in this big massive cathedral, and I like stepped outside and saw this dude and just started taking some pictures, and then like saw the picture that I got of this guy and immediately was like, I want to use that as an album cover someday. And so it was pretty fun to like that this felt like the record that that picture
Mm.
needed to be on or whatever. So but yeah, I mean it was a lot of work putting together all the packaging, put a lot of love into it. So like anything doing a DIY or just being an independent artist, it's more work, it's a lot of money.
Mm.
But I don't know, it's rewarding too. Like when we got the records delivered to my house was like just such a fun moment to like hold this like record that was like a
Mm.
physical manifestation of like 5 years of my life.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like was that was amazing, you know, and so 10 out of 10 would recommend. But it's not for the faint of heart for sure.
Mhm.
It's work. So yeah.
So, you talk about mental health a lot in the music you write, which you've mentioned
Mhm.
before.
Mhm.
I've always wondered what it's like to perform songs like these that are so personal to you, like over and over and again. Is it kind of like
Mhm.
therapeutic in a way?
Yeah, it is. And it's surprising how your own songs that you wrote, that you know exactly what you were talking about when you wrote them, how the meaning will evolve for you and
Mm.
speak to that your own songs will blossom to yourself in new and fresh ways as you get older. I'm trying to think of a good example, like uh Uh, two examples that come to mind. The song "Summer Rain" on my record really is talking a lot about uh, pain and our relationship to pain, and the specific types of pain that I was thinking about when I wrote that song. I still remember and still feel present to me, but like now when I sing those songs, I've encountered different pains since I wrote that song, and so go figure. We keep getting hurt as we get older, uh, but so then those different pains are present to me as I'm singing that song now, and with those experiences in mind, the rest of the lyrics uh, feel different in different contexts. Or a song, another song on the record, "Union," is a song about my marriage to my wife, and it's a song about like the hardship of love, of when like
Mm.
we have a billion and counting songs about love as a feeling, you know what I mean? Like you meet that new special person and like you just have that immediate like overflowing just like
Mhm.
natural feeling of attraction and love, which is a real thing and is so beautiful, whatever, but another form of
Yeah, the
love that
honeymoon
doesn't.
phase.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a beautiful thing. There's nothing to
Mhm.
poo-poo about it or anything like that, but we don't have many songs about love as a choice, you know, that when love gets hard and like commitment, like we don't have nearly as many songs about the beauty of commitment. And
Mm.
that song is about that. And I wrote that song, gosh, I wrote the lyrics for that song 5, 6 years ago. And the hardships that my wife and I were going through 5, 6 years ago, we're going through way different hardships now. You know what I mean? But so when I sing Union now, I'm thinking about the stuff that my wife and I are wrestling through and arguing about right now. You know what I mean? And choosing to love each other now um, makes that song feel different. There's different mental images that come to mind when I'm singing that song now than when I originally wrote it, which is kind of fun to like have your own song speak back to you as you get
Gotcha.
older, is that's been like it's the songs have kept themselves fresh in that way. They've felt like living things, so uh, definitely very therapeutic for sure. So uh,
So I feel like it's become a whole lot more commonplace to kind of talk about mental health within music
yeah,
over the past decade or two.
for sure.
Why do you think
hmm
it's so important to focus on mental health within y'all's music?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Well, I feel like the kind of explosion, if you will, of like songs and people like talking about mental health. I think the more space that has been made for those kinds of conversations, I think people have felt more safe to kind of plumb the depths of those, to uh like, oh, we've got songs about depression, but culturally we're becoming a lot more comfortable talking about mental health in general, like talking about depression, talking about anxiety. And so maybe a song that you would have written about depression or anxiety 20 years ago might have stayed a little bit more on the surface a little bit
Mm,
because um, maybe as songwriters we were a little bit more afraid to go there, that in our current context that we've gotten a little bit more cozy with feeling like people are going to be okay with us like really telling it like it is, Um, so I don't know, but I think there can be kind of a shadow side to that sometimes, like the that sometimes I don't know, like that there's been so much focus on mental health. Sometimes I wonder if we're doing like a little bit too much navel gazing, a little bit
mm,
that if we're like I don't know that like sometimes I feel like um, we're kind of all encouraged to do so much self-examination that sometimes I wonder if we like find things that weren't actually there. Maybe if I'm like oh, I wonder if I'm anxious and I'm feeling anxious that I am not finding anxiety in myself when I'm thinking, oh, there's got to be, I don't know, like, I'm not making any sense, but I don't know.
no,
Sometimes I
you
wonder
are.
if, do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes I wonder if
Hmm.
like, um, if you're told that we're all depressed and anxious, that maybe you're not actually depressed and anxious, but now you feel sad and anxious because
Mm,
you feel like you're supposed to or something like that. I don't think that that's like a really huge problem or anything like that. I think it's overall it's a really good thing that culturally and artists and songwriters are really plumbing the depths of mental health. I think overall that's a good thing. But like everything, there's shadow sides to any good thing for sure. But um yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but I gave you some waxing and musings about mental health. Maybe that's what you wanted. So
yeah, you do it. I do kind of relate to what you were saying about at the end about, and for me, I just kind of to get over the focusing on my feelings and just chill out, just live in the moment for a second and just enjoy that and don't have to worry about these labels
yeah, yeah,
all the
it's
time.
give and take, it's balance, it's like
Mm,
anything, man, that like there's a time and a season for everything. There's a time to like do inner work and to confront things that you haven't
mm,
confronted, and then there's also a time to move past that and to just be like, yeah, like I struggle with these things, but you know what, I'm gonna choose to not wallow in that and to not
exactly. Yeah.
exactly, yeah, and there's there's not a rule for that. You know what I mean? There's
Mm,
like because sometimes like me, I tend to be an avoider. You know what I mean? That like, oh, I'm feeling some sort of negativity or I'm starting to feel some sadness creeping in, and I kind of run from that. Is generally my is usually my instinct. And so sometimes it's really good to sit with a hard feeling for a while, but sometimes though you've been sitting with it too long and it's time to move on. You know what I mean? And to
Mhm.
choose to feel a different thing, which I don't know how capable we are of that or not, but um, yeah, it's like everything. There's a season for everything. So yeah,
Exactly. So focusing on something a little bit more fun.
yeah. Here
Y'all
we go.
recently
Yeah, like we're
performed
saying.
on CBS Saturday Morning. How was
Yeah,
that whole
yeah.
experience from being
Wild.
invited all the way to performing there on stage?
Yeah, it was totally wild. I mean, gosh, it the amount of the amount of bands that like want to play on that show and should be on that show or should be on any of those national TV slots. Like it felt like I've told so many people it felt silly that we were there. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Like there's so many insanely great bands out there right now with killer records. Like it felt kind of strange being plucked out of the like ocean of incredible artists and asked to get to play on that kind of a stage, was it was weird. But such an honor too is like so so cool. But yeah, I mean it was a whirlwind. We like got word that like I think I think it was like the day before our record came out on May 5th.
mhm.
I think it was like the day before. I think it was on May 4th that we found out that we got an offer to come and play on CBS, and which was like such a fun like day before record release thing to
Mhm.
find out. But it was insane because it was like we had all of our our record release tour dates for most of the month of May um, booked, and we were promoting and stuff and excited to do that. And they wanted us to come out in May, and we had this like short little window of time in our tour calendar where we were planning to be home, and that was like exactly when they wanted us to come out, so like the timing of it just worked out perfectly. But so we had like we the day before our record came out, all of a sudden we were like trying to like figure out logistics on like getting the band out to New York and getting all
Mhm.
of our gear out there, and like, are we gonna fly, are we gonna rent backline, are we gonna where are we gonna stay, like all this logistical stuff that in the midst of like releasing this record and then going and playing all the shows that we already had booked. But so it was kind of a lot. Like honestly, we got to the end of May and I was like exhausted, but it was great. Yeah, I mean, we drove out there and the crew was so sweet and they were all super into the record and super into the performance and stuff, and which was just a lot of fun. It was, but yeah, the whole time being at the studio, it felt like it like felt like somebody was going to come up to us and be like, "Wait, who are you guys?" Like, there's been a big mistake. Like we I'm really sorry. Like the real band is actually showing up in an hour.
Yeah.
The intern they got it all wrong. You know what I mean? Like we're really sorry. Like it like felt like that was going to happen, but no, we were they wanted us to be there. So um yeah, it was great. We felt really great about our performance too. So it was awesome. But yeah, such a it was a whirlwind of an experience. Got to after our show because they like they film at Times Square, or whatever, and we got to go hang out in Brooklyn for the rest of the day and catch a really good show at Baby's All Right, which
Mhm.
is a really sweet venue in Brooklyn. So it was just like the best, like cap to the record cycle of just putting in so much work on the record and getting ready to release it, and then like getting to go play on national TV was just like such a treat. It felt like a really fun reward for a lot of hard work and stuff. So, um, yeah, crazy experience.
So talking about performances, you perform many places from bars to festivals. So obviously Saturday Morning, which you just talked about.
Mm.
What has been your favorite performance experience so far?
Oh man. I mean, I probably could say CBS Saturday Morning was that was pretty fun, but um, Um, favorite. My probably my favorite is there's a really legendary music venue in Minneapolis, which is like, I mean, we live in Eau Claire and based out of Eau Claire. Eau Claire's our hometown, but Minneapolis feels kind of like this like sister city to us. It's just like an hour and a half down the road. There's a music venue there called First Avenue. That's this like super legendary rock club.
Mm.
It's like the home of Prince.
Oh.
But that venue holds this like insanely special place in my heart. I feel like I kind of grew up there a little bit musically, like seen so many of my favorite bands come through and play there. And they've got First Ave main room and then their smaller venue that's directly connected to it called 7th Street Entry. And I've seen so many of my favorite bands at both of those venues. Um, and we've gotten to play 7th Street Entry several times over the last few years. And man, I feel like every time we play there is like my favorite show because it's like it feels like a hometown show to us. You know, it's always pretty packed with with peeps, and you just kind of feel the history of that space. You know, of just so many bands that have played there and being like having had that experience of being the person in the crowd and then getting to like actually be on that stage, you know, is really
Mm.
special. Whereas like when we go and play in other cities in like Chicago or Milwaukee or something like that, like I didn't grow up going to shows in any of those cities, you know, so like my first time playing at being in whatever venue is from me playing there, not from like being a person out in the crowd, you know, whereas like playing at 7th Street Entry, it's like I've been out in that crowd a billion times, you know what I mean? So you just feel this like different level of excitement of being on the stage sharing the music and stuff. So yeah, we played a like record release show at the Entry in Minneapolis and it was like insane. It was so fun. So yeah.
Cool. I kind of want to get into some more personal questions before we wrap this up.
Yeah, go for it, man.
So in 2017, on your Instagram, you kind of talked about 8 albums that were important to you that year. You
Mm.
mentioned
Mm-hmm.
records like "Damn" by Kendrick Lamar,
Yeah.
"Crack Up" by the Fleet Foxes, and "Sleep
Yeah.
Well Beast" by the National, and some others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you think of some albums that have impacted you this year?
Oh man. Well behind me, I don't know if you can see it. I've got like a little shelf with records, my like
Oh,
record
okay.
setup and like my guitar. I'm sitting in my living room right now. Um, I am a huge Willie Nelson fan. He's like my favorite artist of all time. And I feel like I'm always listening to Willie. Just he's my favorite. But I feel like this year, especially, like I've been listening to Willie voraciously for a long time now, but like this year maybe more than ever for some reason. Like
Mm.
I'm just like I've like felt embarrassed by like how much Willie I've been listening to. It's like at times it's felt like I get to the end of the month and I'm like, did I only listen to Willie this month? Like it might have been like honestly, like I've been like going really deep on Willie's live records. He's
Mm.
got one that came out in the late '70s, which was his career was just like taking off like crazy. It's just called Willie Nelson and the Family Live, and um, man, I've just been like going so deep on that record. It's like 2 hours long, and I just got he just released a another one called another live record just this past year, live from Budokan. It's a performance that he did in Tokyo in like 1984, and
Mhm.
he released that one as like a record store day exclusive record, and I just picked that one up from my record store, um, and been listening to that one like crazy. But some not Willie, I could talk about so many Willie records that I've been getting into, but non Willie this year that I've been listening to a lot. I can't remember if it came out this year, if it came out last year, but it's sitting up on the shelf right now, so it's kind of top of mind. But record called "Weather Alive" by Beth Orton. You check that?
Mm.
Did you hear that one?
I've never
I
heard
think
of
that
that
one,
one.
dude, it's insane. It's like it's pretty. I read some writer writing about it, and I think she described it that like every song sounds like a different weather forecast, and I was like, for some reason that really stuck with me, and um, it's a pretty dreamy record. I felt like that was a really good description of it, honestly. But yeah, Weather Live by Beth Orton is one that comes to mind. Trying to think of other records that have been meaningful to me this year. Yeah, Willie. Always Willie.
Not a bad
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I got to see him live for the first time in May, and
Oh,
I
nice.
was
Okay.
it was just insane. He took the stage and I just like didn't stop smiling for like 2 hours basically. He's just like such a force. Like, yeah. So yeah.
So I've never been to Eau Claire. Did I pronounce that right?
Eau Claire, like
Eau Claire.
OH.
Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like French. Yeah. Yeah, you is oh yeah.
So I've never been to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and I'm assuming a lot of our listeners haven't as well.
Yeah,
If
probably
I were
not.
to
Yeah.
visit, where are some places I should stop by?
Oh man. Well, Eau Claire it's more of a big town than a small city. And so we like don't have a lot, but and that's part of what I think is great about it to some degree. Some would say that that's the thing that sucks about Eau Claire is that we don't have a lot. But I kind of think it's a thing that keeps us a little bit more community focused. We don't have too many attractions, I would say, but um, it's a beautiful area. I would say, like naturally, like something that I love about Eau Claire is wherever you are in Eau Claire, if you drive 20 minutes in any direction, you're in farmland, which is cool. But it's still like a city of like 70 some thousand people, and some of the smaller towns that are directly adjacent to Eau Claire, like the Eau Claire metro area is probably like 100,000 people or something like that. So it's not like teensy or anything like that, but it's pretty cool that like you drive 20 minutes in any direction wherever you are in Eau Claire, and you're just like out in really beautiful rolling hills. So yeah, if you came to Eau Claire, we'd probably go outside of Eau Claire and just go on a drive. Would be pretty fun. But there's a really my favorite record store that I've ever been to out anywhere is in Eau Claire. It's called Revival Records, and I go there probably not every week, but close to every week. And the shop owner there, Billy, is the best, and you can talk with him about records all day. It's like one of those classic record store experiences, which are becoming rare as record stores are just like a little bit more rare to some degree, but really rad bike shop, coffee shop that I go to all the time called Shift. Shout out. But yeah, one of the best bars of all time is called The Joint. It's on Water Street in Eau Claire. That's a pretty there's a lot of people who've never been to Eau Claire who've heard of The Joint. That's kind of an iconic place. You got to go to The Joint. So my favorite watering hole is there's a place like 5 blocks from my house in the studio called the Amber Inn that is the oldest bar in Eau Claire. It was made in 1884, I believe is when it was made. It was super, super old. And you kind of feel that when you go in there. It's pretty cool. So you should come to Eau Claire. It's a cool place.
Cool. So is there anything else you wanted to talk about that I did not ask?
I mean, I don't think so. I talked a lot, so you probably got plenty.
Okay.
You probably got more than you bargained for. So, oh man, where should I? Where if we came to North Carolina, I'd like have spent basically zero time in North Carolina. Where should we come play? Where's the place to play in North Carolina?
Oh man, there are so many great music venues
Yeah.
in the Triangle area.
What's your favorite?
Mine's is Cat's Cradle, which is in
Cat's
Carbondale.
Cradle? I've heard of Cat's Cradle.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. That's great.
Yeah, it's awesome. There's also so many other options.
Yeah. Okay. Killing.
So do you mind letting the listeners know where they can find out more about Waldemar, like social media, stuff like that?
100%. Yeah. Most active on Instagram, although I kind of take hiatuses from being on social media semi often. Just it's just good for my brain, good for my soul to not be on there all the time. But on Instagram, at Where's Waldemar, and I would love for people to connect via email. I per what I just said about I try to not be on social media too much. I'm trying to really cultivate like a good space off of social media that we can like stay in touch via email newsletter. So trying to have a thriving community there. But website, waldemarmusic.com, has got everything. It's got all the videos, it's got the podcast episodes, it's got the bio, it's got the pictures, it's got
Nice.
all the goodies.
That is the end of the interview.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking out time of your day to come interview with us.
100%, Cavell. It's really good chatting, man.
Thank you all for tuning in to this interview. You can check out other interviews at wknc.org/podcast and click on Off the Record. I'm Kiva on WKNC 88.1 FM HD1 Raleigh. Thank you for listening and take care.